Hello, and welcome to video number 3 in this console mix rundown series. In this track, we're going to be looking at Gloomy Face, which is track number 3. I think I got the name wrong at the end of the last video. Yeah, Coincidence was the working title. This is actually called Gloomy Face. Again, in terms of style, this track is vastly different from the other two. It's more kind of piano vocal focused at the beginning and end, with a really kind of huge instrumental epic bit in the middle, which you can see sort of around here. Yeah, so at least for the first half of the song, I wanted to kind of wanted the driving kind of components to be the piano and the vocals. There were also some clean guitars in there and some crunchy guitars towards the middle, but I found them too distracting. When panned, when centered, they were taken away from the piano. They weren't. So they're still in there. Some that are gone, completely cut, mercilessly. Others are still in there, but bedded right way down because they were drawing too much attention away from the core elements of the track. The piano track, the piano sounds in this project are actually the only element of the only track in all 4 songs that I haven't personally recorded myself, or I haven't personally engineered the sessions for. These pianos were actually recorded for the demo on a nice Steinway in the studio a while back, and the band were really fond of the takes and insisted that it was kept, which is fine by me. Less work to do. One thing I did find, however, was that I think they may have been time stretched before sending them to me. There's a slightly weird warbly sound that you can probably hear them. Only slight. It sounds like it's jumping a tad. I hope that I've managed to cover a lot of that up with kind of EQ and reverb, kind of masking reverb. Yeah, so if we take a listen to the first 30 seconds of the song, it's
though the games that you play, they don't faze me, and the match that you strike doesn't leave enough light, then you're broken.
I considered parallel compressing the vocal, and I actually did parallel compress the vocal, and I felt it lost a bit of the kind of intimacy. This is quite, at least the first half of the song is quite sort of close and I want to say tender, and even though parallel compression is a lot better for that than standard kind of hard compression, it didn't feel right, so that's gone. The track opens up a little bit when the kind of drums kick in.
Mark a place in your heart to remind yourself when the love came too far and the journey must end.
Okay, so in terms of drum processing for this track, I had to break it down to 2 sections. In the first half of the song and the last half and part of the last half of the song, I based the majority of the sound of the overheads. In a similar way to I did to the Given Something track, I got a mix with the overheads and then used the spot mics purely for augmentation of the overhead tone. Took out all the tom spot mics because they were a bit, I don't know, didn't quite fit. I think the drum was hitting it maybe a bit too hard, so they became overbearing. So you can hear the drums. Here when they solo. There we go. Very, at the moment, very roomy. Not actually using any kind of snare mic at the moment. It's all kind of hallway and overheads and kick drum. That changes when we fade them in for the chorus here. Again, very quiet, very roomy. Very quiet, very roomy, almost just based off overheads. Especially when especially with the ghost notes as well. I mean, I find unless you're using a lot of reverb and a lot of automation, ghost notes on a close mic tend to sound kind of unnatural and weird. So again, another reason for basing it solely off the spot mics. I changed the way that I process the drums for this mid section. Basically, the track kind of opens up into this big, kind of, I want to say, eruption. And for this, I switched through kind of automation and the trim function. I switched it to be fairly dependent on the close mics. So if you listen, we've got a lot of kind of tom panning and the snare appears to be hit. The snare sounds like it's being hit a lot harder than it actually is. Which kind of really helps it cut through, especially when the piano and the bass and the kind of double track, triple track vocals come in. It really helps it cut through, and then this kind of style of mixing continues through right to the very end. The last chorus to another lift.
It was too hard to find the words of a love song and the mind behind every move you make. I just want to go back to the start.
Cool. As this was a particularly vocal heavy track, we had the cool option of adding a lot of kind of backing vocals and harmonies, which is something the band didn't really tend to do in any of the other tracks. So as well as the lead vocal, as we can see here, we started to introduce double tracking for the second chorus, which is not there. It's here.
And the coincidence, it blew my mind. Don't say that you hate me.
Still in the mix, that I found this was lacking a little bit. The drummer, however, had like a insanely baritone, crazy voice. Not the best singer in the world, but I used him for the low end. So we got another take of the drummer singing with very, very harsh auto tune.
And the coincidence, it blew my mind. Don't say that.
Again, it's not that nice on its own, but when kind of mixed when mixed in with the other vocals, it adds like a nice thickness to it.
And the coincidence, it blew my mind. Don't say that you hate me.
That's also now being supplemented with kind of oohs and ahs by the backing singer. Some nice backing vocals, which is just going to. It's just two tracks left and right doing harmonies, which are going to its own bus with a delay, reverb, compressor, all the usual stuff.
And the coincidence, it blew my mind.
So yeah, vocally, initially the demos I sent were quite sort of linear vocally. There was maybe two tracks, one track of harmonies, one track of vocal that kind of ran throughout. Because of the kind of the nature of the track, and especially this epic big bit in the middle, I really wanted to kind of rely quite heavily on the vocals, or to occupy a lot of the frequency range, meaning I haven't got to rely too much on the kind of guitar tracks. And I was kind of hoping the vocals and the piano would fill out a lot of the track. So I was able to do a lot of cool stuff with kind of double, triple tracking. So we've got this bit in the middle. It's just kind of hard panned, double tracking. It transitions into this nice distorted bit as well, when coupled with the backing vocal harmonies.
Hey, would I be in the wrong if I was to say that my head's not okay and my mind's not in shape? I fall out of love, but I'd write the next song for you. And the coincidence, it blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the kind of megaphone shouty effects I got for this bit midsection of the chorus. When speaking with the singer, he said he wanted this kind of middle bit, particularly these lines, to be treated more of an instrument than a voice. So he wanted to be bedded down quite low, where you have to kind of struggle to hear it, matching the kind of lyrical content. It's kind of about a struggle and a kind of collapse of the mind. So in order to achieve that, I gave a kind of pretty harsh telephone filter, compressed it to no end. I think ratio 4:1 with a really ridiculously low threshold. And then I put some distorted spring reverb after it as well to kind of muddy it up and add more kind of saturation and make it harder to hear, as well. Couple that again with a really quite aggressive telephone filter. Generally EQ wise, I stick to FabFilter's Pro Q. Occasionally, for more kind of harsh sounding stuff, I use the Waves EQ as well. I only really use this for the Pro Tools one for really proper nasty sounding elements, which again it's not clean by any means. But no, yeah, I've managed to. I hope I've managed to fill out the majority of the frequency spectrum using just the piano and vocals with minimum kind of reliance on the guitars, which was fun to do, especially for a band of this kind. It's rare you get to do kind of very much vocal stuff. Again, like talking about going back to the kind of not hardware, but the kind of DIY element of the band. A lot of the they like to get a lot right and input with kind of source tones and mucking out amp settings, and then rather than adopting kind of fix it in the mix mentality, which is actually really refreshing. So you can take these two lead guitars. I mean, I've got a bit of EQ and thingy on and delay, but they insisted on running. We tried a lot of techniques actually, but we ended up running the afterneath reverb pedal in front of the amp, so the amp began to break up the reverb. It sounded really nice. I think they sit quite nicely in the rest of it due to the distortion. In terms of mixing style for this, I again, as similar to the Given Something, I decided to go with a fairly minimal approach. Matching the lyrical content is about kind of introspective thoughts of quite a fragile mind, and I know to me that kind of content didn't match just kind of perfectly. It was kind of perfect, really controlled, nice, tight mix. I thought it would be nicer if I leave it a bit rough around the edges, which meant limiting myself to kind of maybe not automating a lot of the volumes, not automating parameters based on where they are sort of in the track kind of thing, and rely basically off a single kind of linear mix. Oh yeah, and then so we got with the snare tracks as well. We have 3 different snare tracks, which are actually muted in the start, getting just the overhead tones. We then introduced these two, and this is a very, very light parallel compress of the close mic snare. Very little processing in terms of EQ. I can see we've only got a kind of. Actually, that's quite a lot to be fair. I think there were some grim frequencies going on with kind of ring and that, and in hindsight, moon gel on the recording stage probably would have been preferable. But and then again, quite light compression. Then combine that with the then we introduced this other snare in the chorus and the picture section, which again I'm using more of the kind of the 25 millisecond attack thing demonstrated before to give it more of a punch and let it cut through. And I believe, yeah, I've also got this compressor automated to come on the master bus during the midsection, again, which is side changing the snare to help duck the mix a little bit more when the snare hits the sing, which you can hear here. So if I just A-B this. So yeah, again, I'm mixing into a rough, very very rough mastering-ish chain, just to so I'm not met with any nasty surprises in terms of kind of level being screwed with when I submit for actual mastering. I think that's pretty much it to talk about for this track. Again, I upped it for a fairly minimal feel. Let the kind of the music do the talking rather than any kind of swanky production. Okay, brilliant. Cool. Yeah, hopefully you guys stay tuned for the next video, which will be the final track in the series, actually number 4. We're looking through the mix of Havana, which is the last track on the EP. So see you then.